Welcome to CurioFlux. Today, we are getting into something that can feel, well, super personal, almost invasive. We're talking about the sound of your neighbors. So why is that? Why is a quiet footstep from your neighbor upstairs sometimes way more infuriating than the constant roar of a highway right outside? It's this paradox, right? That quiet rhythmic thud can drive you absolutely nuts, way more than the drone of traffic. It just feels wrong, doesn't it? But it turns out there's some really cool science that explains exactly why certain sounds just burrow into our brains and make us want to scream. And believe me, the story is way bigger than you might think. And hey, this isn't just you. It's not just a feeling. This data from findlaw.com, it shows that noise is, by a massive margin, the #1 reason neighbors get into fights. We're talking nearly half of all disputes. So yeah, if you've ever found yourself grinding your teeth over some mysterious thump from upstairs, you are in very, very good company.
All right, so to really get to the bottom of this mystery, we have to look past our ears and, peer right into our brains. Because the secret here, it's not really about how loud the sound is. It's all about what that sound means to our ancient, primal sense of safety.
Okay, think about it like this. Your brain is basically a prediction machine. It loves patterns. It loves knowing what's coming next. That constant, predictable hum of a highway, your brain goes, okay, got it, nothing to see here, and just filters it out. But neighbor noise? That's a whole different beast. It's totally unpredictable, it's invasive. Every single unexpected thud is like a little red flag that your brain can't anticipate. So what does it do? It flags it as a potential problem, maybe even a threat to your personal space. And you know what? There's an amazing name for this feeling, this creepy, crawly feeling. It's called auditory territoriality. It's this deep-seated perception of noise as an invasion of your territory. It feels like a violation because, on a primal lizard brain level, it is. Your home is your safe space, your sanctuary, and that sound is an intruder, triggering this whole defensive stress response. And this feeling, it has real biological kickback. Your home is supposed to be where you recharge your batteries, right? The one place you can totally let your guard down. So when these unpredictable sounds barge in, it sends a signal to your nervous system saying, hey, maybe you're not so safe after all. That lack of control, it triggers a stress response that can literally raise your blood pressure and, this is the big one, mess with your sleep. And sleep is our most critical time for restoration. Even if you don't fully wake up, your brain is still on high alert.
So, you see, this whole reaction is this wild mix of biology and psychology. But get this, it's even shaped by our culture. There's this phenomenon called sensory attenuation, and it basically shows how where you come from affects how you handle noise. For instance, one study found that people from more group-oriented, collectivist cultures were actually better at tuning out sounds made by other people than folks from more individualistic cultures. So our very idea of me versus them can change what our brain decides is a threat. How crazy is that?
Okay, so that's the why from a brain perspective. But what about the how? Why do these specific sounds cut through so dang easily? For that, we got to put on our hard hats and look at the anatomy of our buildings.
All right, sound basically travels through buildings in two main ways. First up, you've got airborne noise. Think talking, music, the TV, stuff that travels through the air. This gets a rating called STC, and honestly, most modern walls are pretty good at blocking it. But then you have impact noise. This is the bad guy. Footsteps, something getting dropped. It travels directly through the structure of the building. This is rated by something called IIC. And worse, it can sneak around walls through things like pipes and vents. These are called flanking paths. This, right here, is where the trouble really begins.
And this chart? Oh, this chart tells the whole story of betrayal. Just look at a standard concrete floor. Its STC rating for airborne noise, it's good, or even very good. It's awesome at blocking your neighbor's TV. But its IIC rating, the one for impact noise, poor. That same super solid floor does next to nothing to stop the thud-thud-thud of a footstep from vibrating right through the concrete and into your ceiling.
And that's it. That's the physical reason for all our psychological frustration. Our buildings are literally designed to block out the sounds we can predict, like conversation, but they basically act like a drum for the very sounds our brains find most invasive and threatening.
The walls do their job, but the floors, man, the floors just betray us every time.
So this toxic mix of psychology and physics, it doesn't just create a personal headache. When you scale it up across our dense cities, it turns into this massive social problem with really serious consequences for public health and even public safety.
Take New York City. An analysis of their 311 complaint line shows noise complaints just climbing and climbing for years. And then they went totally off the charts during the pandemic. But here's the really important part. The data reveals this stark inequality. The burden of all this noise falls way more on lower-income communities, where people are often living in more crowded buildings and just don't have the power to escape it. And you got to remember, complaint data, that doesn't even show the whole picture of who's being exposed. And this goes so far beyond just being annoyed. A huge European health study linked chronic noise exposure to a pretty scary list of health problems. We're talking hypertension, depression, migraines, even things like arthritis and bronchitis. It also busts a common myth. You might think older adults complain more, but while they may report it less, studies show these same noises hit the quality of their sleep much, much harder. All of a sudden, that thump from upstairs isn't just a nuisance, it's a legitimate public health threat. And in the most extreme, heartbreaking cases, this stress can just boil over into actual violence. In South Korea, where a huge chunk of the population lives in apartments, this inner floor noise is a full-blown national crisis. The number of violent crimes directly linked to it jumped from 11 cases in 2016 to 110 just 5 years later. That is a 10-fold increase. And it gets even darker. People are installing things called revenge woofers. These are literally speakers designed to vibrate noise back at their neighbors. There are documented cases of stalking, of assault, and even murder, all of it starting from something as simple as footsteps. It just goes to show you how high the stakes get when our sanctuary, our home, stops feeling safe.
Okay, it's a really complex problem, right? It's layered from our own psychology all the way to the materials in our walls. But here's the good news. That means there are solutions at every single one of those levels. So what are the pathways toward peace?
The best way to think about it is on a spectrum. It can start small at the individual level with just better communication. Then you move up to the community level with things like mediation services. Then you get to the physical, building level solutions, using better materials. And finally, you have the big picture solutions at the city and policy level, which means things like stronger building codes and smarter urban planning.
So where do we start?
Well, community mediation is surprisingly effective. 87%. That's how many mediation services get their referrals directly from housing officers to deal with noise disputes. Just bringing in a neutral third party can totally break that cycle of anger before it gets out of hand.
But for real, long-term change, the fixes have to be systemic. Just imagine cities with stricter building codes that finally take that IIC rating for impact noise seriously. Imagine urban planning that uses green space as a natural sound buffer. Architects could even design buildings with dedicated quiet sides. And what if we all just started talking about noise for what it actually is, a serious health issue?
So in the end, this is really what it all boils down to. Apartment noise is such a deeply human issue. It was never really about the decibels. It's about our fundamental need for predictability, for a sense of control, and for our home to be what it's supposed to be, a sanctuary. And when that sanctuary is breached, our reaction is, well, it's profound.
So I gotta ask, everybody has that one sound. What's yours? Is it the upstairs walker? The phantom bass you can feel more than you can hear? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and we'll see you next time.